Welcome, everybody. You are listening to America's most listened to radio gardening show, and thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate your participation within the program, and what we're going to do is something really special right now. I have on my thingsgreen.com hotline Richard Calkins, and he's an irrigation engineering specialist with the Lee County, Florida Department of Transportation. And welcome to the show.
Oh, good evening. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you today?
Fine, sir. Thank you.
Good. All right. You guys in Florida are doing some pretty wild and crazy things that people are following suit all over the United States. And that happens to be the fact that you understand how precious water is.
It's very precious here. You have to have a water use permit to use it commercially. And we just basically realize that fresh water is a finite entity.
Indeed. And with that, you guys are becoming the leaders, what it seems like, by replacing and retrofitting irrigation systems.
That's correct.
And why are you guys doing this?
Well, basically, it's basically for water conservation. We realize, as I stated, fresh water is finite, and most all of the irrigation here in Southwest Florida, where I reside, is done from wells. And there's probably 3 different aquifers of well. And so basically what we're trying to do is to put some landscape out for the folks to look at and make the roadways brighter, but we're trying to save some water so they can use it for their yards.
Now, what kind of landscaping are you incorporating with all this? Are we using the existing landscaping? Are we tearing things out and replacing, or are we just kind of modifying here and there?
We do modify here and there occasionally. We do not rip things out unless, of course, they're building a brand new road through some place, and they may, obviously, some pine trees may come out, or sable, saw palmettos, and different things like that we have in this part of Florida. But the things that we put back are very interesting, and they're also mostly native plants.
Very nice. Now, when you end up doing something like this, and you take on such a project, because you don't do it just because you feel like doing it. There's these reasons that we just discussed, but there's another reason that I think is really kind of fun, and I'm your basic cheapskate. I mean, if you ever got to look at me, I don't buy razor blades, so I'm not about to go shaving my chin. So I got a big old beard, so I'm saving money not buying razor blades. You guys are doing this as well, and you have measurable water savings as well as cost savings.
Well, of course. I mean, the reason that we're doing this is we partner our drip irrigation and our low-volume irrigation with variable frequency drive pump stations. So not only are we saving electricity and putting the exact amount of water out to the root zone, but we're creating some pretty interesting landscape here in this part of Florida.
Now, when we're talking about the interesting landscapes, that fascinates me, because you do have such a diverse types of kind of plants that you're putting out and things of that nature. Are the landscapes being hindered at all with the kind of drip irrigation? Because you think about it, here you've got a sprinkler system, and a sprinkler system is throwing it out on the plants. Sometimes it's hitting the plants, sometimes it's hitting the ground, but with your drip irrigation, it's a little bit more precise than that, isn't it?
Exactly, and you hit the nail on the head when you stated that sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. I give you for instance, we in a lot of our landscaping, we use black olive shady ladies, some royal palms, wild date palms, sables, yellow point siennas, crepe myrtles, ligustrums, pink tababuyas, gumbo limbos, and the list goes on. And some of our understory plants are native blue porterweed, muley grass, fakahatchee grass, perennial peanut, which is a big favorite of ours, some Parsonii juniper, Asiatic jasmine, and dwarf Indian hawthorn. And on top of that, when we have understory plants under the big trees, we'll cover them up with either pine bark nuggets or pine straw mulch to keep all the irrigation, keep the water from evaporating too quickly.
Sure. Okay, so when you're putting the mulch down, because you're not using a traditional sprinkler system and you're using the mulch, I would imagine that you're even saving money on your mulching, because that doesn't break it down as quickly either, does it?
Exactly correct.
Okay.
And the great thing about mulch is it keeps your ET down.
Oh,
And I'm
absolutely.
sure your listeners understand that.
Yeah, yeah. ET meaning evapotranspiration. It's the
Yes.
sweat, the sweating, and the and
Exactly
taking
right.
it back into an environment like that. Okay, so what about erosion, runoff, and those types of things? Are we having a problem with that when you're using the drip irrigation?
Uh, I can say that unless someone perforates a piece of drip irrigation or a piece of funny pipe that goes to the bubblers around the trees, we have no runoff at all because we've done this for so long now that we know exactly how long to run the drip so we don't get any runoff out of, like, say, the grass or the plants onto the road surface. And we also know exactly how long to run a bubbler in a tree ring so that it doesn't exceed the tree ring and also go onto the roadway
Okay,
and create any type of washout. Yeah.
okay, I can see the tree ring concept and how it literally goes around the tree. When we're talking about the individual plants, where are we placing these emitters? Are you taking it to put them underneath their mini drip line, or are you putting them a distance away, or how is that working?
Well, basically, if we're putting understory plants in a bedded area, the irrigation would go in first. We'd use basically, depending on what the density of the plants is, most of the time we'll start out with a drip tubing with the emitters on 18-inch centers, and then we'd stake this tubing between 16 to 18 inches apart, and which kind of, just by randomness just sets up a nice triangulation. So wherever your plants are, it's going to water the soil, and they're going to be hydrated that way.
Okay, very good. Okay, I can see that concept happening. And then again, you put your compost on top of it, or your straw, or whatever,
Exactly correct. Yes,
and
sir.
life is good. All right, so we've got our water savings. We have our plants. I would imagine that they're staying healthier in the long run too, because because the water is getting exactly where it needs. You don't have a plant replacement as high on the plant as well.
Exactly correct. And one of the things that we've incorporated into the pump stations that we have manufactured for us here locally in Southwest Florida, we have a liquid fertigation system that goes in through the drip tubing or through the bubblers, and we use a mixture of liquid fertilizer that's not only good for the grasses that we use in the medians, and also the plants and the understory plants and the trees.
Very exciting. Well, that's the golden voice of Richard Calkins with his irrigation engineering specialist with Lee County, Florida Department of Transportation. Thank you very much for being on the program with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for talking about water conservation.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing, and I believe everybody needs to do it.